Hello. This is the story of how I brought their world crashing down and ended up with millions in the process. My name's David, and I've been married to Sarah for 8 years. To everyone else, we're the perfect couple, great careers, a beautiful home, no drama. But over the past few months, something has felt wrong. It wasn't anything obvious at first, just little things, late nights at work, distant conversations, her phone always face down. I brushed it off, told myself I was overthinking. But deep down, I knew. What happened next? It shook me to my core, and it's something I never thought I'd be sharing with anyone. But the truth has a way of coming out, whether you're ready for it or not. It wasn't one big moment that tipped me off, it was a series of tiny shifts that, at first, seemed harmless. Sarah had always been dedicated to her job in corporate finance, working long hours and taking late-night calls. I respected her drive. But recently, those late nights started happening more often, way more often. There was one night in particular, though, when things clicked. Sarah came home around midnight, saying she had to stay late for a last-minute meeting. Nothing new, right? But this time, she seemed different. She was wearing a new perfume, one I hadn't smelled before. Expensive, too, the kind she usually saved for special occasions. When I asked about it, she gave me a casual excuse, said a colleague had given her a sample. I wanted to believe her. I really did. But something in her eyes made me pause. You ever look at someone you've known for years and suddenly feel like you don't recognize them? That was the moment. I didn't push it. I let it go, but from that night on, I couldn't shake the feeling that there was something Sarah wasn't telling me. I was about to find out just how right I was. After that night, things started spiraling. Sarah's behavior became more and more strange, and the distance between us grew like a wall I couldn't break through. Conversations turned into short exchanges, her focus always somewhere else, always on her phone. She started taking it everywhere, even to the bathroom. I couldn't remember the last time we had a real talk. But it was more than just the phone. She started coming home later and later, always with some excuse about an emergency at work or a client meeting that ran long. At first, I tried to be understanding, we all get busy, right? But it became impossible to ignore. The woman I married, the one who used to tell me everything, was now someone I barely recognized. And then there were the trips. Out of nowhere, Sarah started mentioning more corporate events, weekend conferences, and business dinners that she had to attend. It was like work was swallowing her whole. Or at least, that's what she wanted me to believe. One weekend, she claimed she had a work trip in Chicago. She'd gone on these before, so I didn't think much of it at first. But when she returned, something was off, she was distant, cold, and avoided any real conversation. It was as if she was carrying some invisible weight, something she wasn't willing to share with me. That night, I realized I had two choices: keep pretending this was all in my head, or face the fact that my gut was screaming at me for a reason. So, I started paying closer attention. And that's when I found something that would change everything. That Chicago trip, something about it just didn't sit right with me. Maybe it was the way Sarah acted when she got back, or maybe it was the months of tiny red flags piling up. But whatever it was, I couldn't let it go. So, I did something I never thought I'd do. I checked her emails. I know how that sounds. Trust is everything in a marriage, right? But at this point, I didn't feel like I had a choice. Something was eating away at me, and I needed to know if my instincts were right. It took me a few tries to guess her password. She always used the same ones, but they had little variations. When I finally got in, I wasn't sure what I was looking for. I wasn't even sure I wanted to find anything. But then I saw it. A confirmation email for a hotel reservation in New York. Not Chicago. My stomach dropped. She hadn't mentioned anything about New York. And the date? It matched her Chicago trip perfectly. At first, I tried to rationalize it. Maybe she had to change locations last minute. Maybe work sent her somewhere else and she didn't have time to explain. But deep down, I knew there was more to this. I kept digging. And that's when I found him. A string of emails between Sarah and someone named Mark. The emails started innocent enough, work-related, formal. But as I scrolled further back, they started getting personal. Flirty. Inside jokes. And then, a message that hit me like a punch to the gut. I can't wait to see you this weekend. Chicago was great, but New York will be even better. The blood drained from my face. I felt like the ground had just been ripped out from under me. My wife, the woman I thought I knew better than anyone, was lying. And worse, she was hiding him. I stared at the screen, my mind racing, my heart pounding. Every suspicious moment, every excuse she'd given me over the past few months flashed before my eyes. This wasn't just a work trip. This was something far worse. But I couldn't confront her yet, not without knowing everything. And so, I waited. Watched. And braced myself for what I might uncover next. After finding those emails, my mind was flooded with questions. Who was Mark? How long had this been going on? I needed answers, but I knew I couldn't confront Sarah yet, not without more information. If I pushed too soon, she'd deny everything, twist it, and I'd be left with nothing but doubt. So, I decided to keep watching and gathering evidence. Over the next few days, I tried to act normal, but it wasn't easy. Every time Sarah walked into the room, my stomach tightened. I found myself analyzing her every move, every word she said. Was she lying to me again? Did she suspect I knew? Then, something happened that confirmed everything. Sarah mentioned another work dinner with her team. It sounded like a regular thing, but my gut told me otherwise. So, that evening, while she was out, I checked her location through an app we'd both installed years ago for safety. I felt guilty even opening it, but my need to know the truth outweighed everything else. And there it was. She wasn't at the restaurant she'd said she'd be at, she was at a hotel, the same one from the email. My heart sank. I stared at the screen, knowing that there was no turning back now. This wasn't a misunderstanding or a one-time thing. This was real, and it was happening right in front of me. I didn't know how to confront her, but one thing was clear, I couldn't stay in the dark any longer. It was time to face the truth. I couldn't sit at home any longer. Seeing Sarah at that hotel on my phone screen lit a fire in me. I grabbed my keys, not even sure what I was planning to do, and headed straight for the address on the tracker. My heart was racing the entire drive. My hands were gripping the wheel so tight they started to ache, but I didn't care. I needed to see it with my own eyes. When I pulled up to the hotel, my mind was already bracing for what I might find. I imagined walking in, catching them together, confronting them on the spot. But when I got there, the parking lot was almost empty. I walked through the lobby, scanning the place for any sign of Sarah or him. Nothing. I stood there, feeling like an idiot. My heart was pounding so hard I could barely think straight. I pulled out my phone, opened the tracker again, and my stomach dropped. The location had moved. Sarah wasn't at the hotel anymore. She was on the move. Without thinking, I raced back to my car, trying to stay calm as I watched the tracker update in real time. It looked like they were heading toward the outskirts of town, but I didn't know where. I just knew I had to follow. My hands were shaking as I sped down the road, trying to keep up with the moving pin on my phone screen. I didn't know what I'd find, but this was it. I was done with the lies. One way or another, I was going to get the truth. I drove like a madman, following the little blue dot on my phone as it weaved through back roads and highways. I didn't know where I was headed, only that I was getting closer. My mind was racing with questions, my chest tight with anticipation. And then, the tracker finally stopped, at some kind of private estate. It wasn't just any place. It was stunning. Beautifully lit with lanterns, the kind of setting you'd see in a movie. Romantic, secluded, and clearly planned. I parked my car far enough away to not be noticed and killed the engine, my heart pounding in my chest. What the hell was going on? I watched as Sarah stepped out of a car with a man, him. I couldn't see his face clearly, but I knew. It was Mark. They were walking toward this setup, a small, intimate area with flowers, candles, and what looked like a table set for two. Everything was perfect. Too perfect. My stomach churned as I realized what was happening, but I stayed in the car, unable to move, unable to do anything but watch. And then it happened. Mark pulled something out of his pocket, got down on one knee, and looked up at my wife with a smile I'd never seen before. The words hit me like a sledgehammer. He was proposing to her. Right in front of me. I watched as Sarah's face lit up with joy, as if this was the happiest moment of her life. She didn't hesitate for a second. She said yes. My wife, the woman I had spent 8 years of my life with, said yes to another man. She kissed him right there, under the lights, as if she hadn't just shattered my entire world. I sat there, frozen, watching the life I thought I knew crumble in front of me. Everything inside me screamed to get out of the car, to stop this, but I couldn't move. I was trapped in my own nightmare, witnessing the ultimate betrayal. Sitting there, watching Sarah kiss another man, something inside me snapped. The hurt, the betrayal, it all turned into something darker. Anger. Rage. But most of all, the need for revenge. I wasn't going to be the fool who sat back and watched his life fall apart. No. They were going to pay for this, both of them. But I knew I couldn't just confront them in the heat of the moment. That would be too easy for them. They'd just make excuses, twist the truth. No, I wanted to destroy them in a way that left no room for escape. I was going to ruin them both, from the inside out, and I had a plan. First, Sarah's career. She worked hard to climb the corporate ladder, and her reputation meant everything to her. I had access to her work emails, she never changed the password. So, I dug deep into her work accounts, her correspondence, and her files. It didn't take long to find what I needed. Emails that showed unethical business practices, deals she'd been involved in that could easily ruin her. I downloaded everything. Then there was Mark. I didn't know much about him yet, but that didn't matter. What I did know was enough, he had a wife. That's right, the man who had just proposed to my wife was already married. I found her online easily. A few pictures, some digging through social media, and I had everything I needed. I took screenshots of the proposal I had just witnessed, the kissing, the whole betrayal, and sent them straight to his wife's inbox. I even attached a little note, thought you should know what your husband's been up to. But that wasn't all. I wasn't just going to destroy their personal lives, I wanted to leave them with nothing. I hired a private investigator to dig up every bit of dirt he could find on both of them. Affairs, financial secrets, anything that would help tear apart their worlds. And then, I waited. The wrecking ball was set in motion. As for Sarah, I had one final blow. She didn't know I had recorded everything that night, the proposal, the kiss. I was going to send that video to her boss and HR, painting her as a manipulative woman using personal relationships to her advantage at work. It wouldn't just damage her reputation, it would destroy it completely. And she had no idea. I wasn't stopping until both of them lost everything they thought they had, careers, relationships, reputations. They were going to feel the pain I felt, but 100 times worse. And they wouldn't see it coming. I wasn't just going to hit them where it hurt, I was going to bury them alive in the fallout. You see, what neither of them realized was how connected I was. I wasn't just any random husband, they didn't know how much control I had over the lives they were about to lose. Let's start with Sarah's career. I didn't just have access to her dirty little secrets. I knew her company's biggest clients, the ones who kept the lights on. So, I did some digging. Sarah had shared details about those clients with Mark over the past year. I don't think she even realized what she was doing, but those confidential details. Illegal in the hands of anyone outside her firm. That's corporate espionage. I packaged everything up, emails, recordings, and fake invoices they used for personal gain, and sent it anonymously to her company's board of directors. I also made sure to loop in their biggest client. Nothing hits a corporation harder than bad PR and a scandal involving its top executives. When the board gets those documents, they won't just fire Sarah, they'll bury her in legal battles. I wanted her in courtrooms for the next decade, every dollar drained by lawsuits. Then there was Mark. The golden boy who thought he could have my wife and get away with it. Remember how I reached out to his wife? That was just the beginning. I didn't just blow up his marriage, I made sure his entire world came crashing down. I had my private investigator dig up his financials, and oh, did I find gold. Mark had been embezzling money from his own company for years, funneling funds into secret accounts. And guess what? I sent every bit of evidence to his CEO and the IRS. There's no running from that. But I wanted more. So I leaked the details to a few key journalists I knew, the kind who love a juicy scandal and a public takedown. When the story breaks, it won't just be a small headline. It'll be a national disaster. They'll plaster his face all over the news as the cheating executive who stole from his own company. He'll lose everything, his wife, his job, his reputation, and the lawsuits that follow will bleed him dry. But I wasn't done. I wanted them to feel it personally. So, I made sure they'd never have peace. Sarah's family. They were deeply religious, proud of their daughter's success and perfect marriage. I sent the proposal video to her parents, every second of it. They would see their little girl accepting another man's ring while still married to me. That perfect daughter. She was dead to them now. As for Mark's social life, I reached out to his entire circle, friends, family, colleagues. I made sure everyone knew what he had done. Every event, every party, every place he'd try to show his face at, he'd be greeted with whispers and cold stares. He was going to be a pariah. And the best part? They didn't know it was me. Every move I made was through anonymous accounts, burner phones, and encrypted emails. They'd never trace it back to me, and I'd be sitting there, watching as their lives fell apart piece by piece. I didn't just want revenge, I wanted them to live in ruins. With Sarah's career and Mark's life in absolute shambles, I knew it was time for the final touch, the one that would break them completely. I had torn apart their reputations, destroyed their relationships, and ruined their financial stability, but there was one thing left, the public humiliation. I wanted their dirty little secret to be dragged into the light for everyone to see. Remember that proposal video? The one where Mark got down on one knee and Sarah said, yes, like she hadn't just betrayed her own husband. I wasn't done with it. That footage was my weapon, and I was about to detonate it. I took the video and crafted a perfect story. I uploaded it to every social media platform, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, everywhere. But I didn't just post the video, I framed it as a cautionary tale. The title? Caught in the act, wife accepts proposal from her lover while still married, watch the shocking moment unfold. Within hours, the post went viral. Thousands of people shared it, commented on it, calling out Sarah and Mark as the ultimate cheaters. The internet has a way of devouring scandals like that, and I made sure it spread like wildfire. But I didn't stop there. I sent the video to every single person who mattered in Sarah's and Mark's lives. Their bosses, their co-workers, their friends, their families. Everyone was going to know exactly who they were. I wanted them to feel the burn every time they stepped outside, every time they checked their phones, every time they saw a notification. Their faces would be plastered on gossip sites, YouTube channels, and tabloid articles. The kind of viral shame you don't recover from. And then, the kicker. I hacked into Sarah's and Mark's work emails, just enough to schedule a few surprise messages. I timed it perfectly so that every single person in their companies received an anonymous tip, linking to the viral video. I made sure they couldn't hide. They'd show up at work the next day, and the entire office would be whispering behind their backs, staring at them like the circus freaks they had become. There would be no place safe for them, not at work, not at home, not online. But I wasn't finished yet. I wanted them to feel what it was like to be truly alone. So, I did the unthinkable. I sent Mark a link to the viral video with a simple message: Sarah's been lying to you, too. Ask her about the other men. It wasn't true. I had no idea if Sarah had cheated with anyone else. But it didn't matter, Mark wouldn't question it. He'd be too paranoid, too wrapped up in the chaos I had already created. Their fragile, stolen relationship would implode. They'd turn on each other, each one wondering if the other had played them from the start. And as their lives crumbled, I'd be watching from the sidelines, unseen, untouchable. Every time they tried to rebuild, they'd be knocked down by another wave of public humiliation, another reminder that they could never escape the disaster I had set in motion. Their worlds were ruined, and I hadn't even laid a finger on them. I wanted to make sure they understood one thing: you don't betray someone without consequences. Everything was set in motion. Sarah and Mark had no idea what was coming, but it was about to hit them like a freight train. The viral video spread faster than I could have imagined. Within days, they were the internet's newest scandal, and the fallout was brutal. The first hit came when Sarah's company saw the emails I had sent to her board. The HR department launched an investigation, and it didn't take long for them to find everything: her unethical behavior, the corporate espionage involving Mark, and the inappropriate emails between them. Sarah was dragged into a meeting with the board, and within hours, she was out of a job. No severance, no support, just disgrace. But that wasn't all. I knew her industry. I knew how tight-knit and reputation-driven it was. Word spread quickly, and by the end of the week, every major firm in her field knew what had happened. Sarah was blacklisted. No one would hire her. Her career, the one thing she valued more than anything, was over. She had become toxic, a walking disaster no company wanted to touch. Then came Mark's downfall. The financial scandals I'd uncovered hit his company like a bomb. His embezzlement, hidden accounts, and shady dealings were exposed. He was escorted out of the building by security, with no chance to defend himself. His wife, the woman he had cheated on, was already filing for divorce after seeing the proposal video. And the best part? I made sure the divorce papers included everything. Every betrayal, every lie. Mark wasn't just losing his wife, he was losing half of everything he had worked for, with legal fees piling up that would drain whatever was left. But that wasn't enough. I wanted them to feel the personal cost. So, I sent Sarah and Mark both a link to the same viral video. I wanted them to see how the world viewed them, how their families, friends, and even strangers saw them for the liars they were. I wanted them to see every hateful comment, every mocking meme, every reminder that their dirty secret was now public property. And then, I waited. It didn't take long for the cracks to show. Sarah, stripped of her career and her family's respect, spiraled into a state of desperation. The last time I saw her, she looked broken, nothing like the confident woman I had once loved. She had lost everything, and no amount of excuses or lies could save her now. She reached out to me, trying to explain, trying to apologize. But I didn't respond. I didn't need to hear anything from her. I had already won. Mark? He was no better off. He and Sarah, once so cozy in their secret affair, were now turning on each other. My little message about other men had done its job. Mark was paranoid, accusing Sarah of hiding more from him, while she blamed him for everything falling apart. I had driven a wedge between them that couldn't be removed. Their stolen love, built on lies and betrayal, was crumbling faster than they could hold it together. And me? I moved on. There was nothing left for me in that wreckage. I didn't need to confront them, didn't need to scream or fight. I had done what I set out to do, I had taken everything from them. Their reputations, their careers, their relationships. They were nothing now, shadows of the people they used to be, haunted by the ruin they had brought on themselves. I stood back and watched as their lives fell apart, knowing that I had delivered the ultimate revenge. And the best part? I was free. Free from the lies, the deceit, the betrayal. Free from the people who thought they could ruin me without consequence. I didn't need them. I didn't need to hate them anymore. Because I had already destroyed them. It had been a month since I unleashed my revenge on Sarah and Mark. I thought that once their lives crumbled, I'd be able to move on. I was wrong, not because I had any regrets, but because there was something left hanging in the air. An eerie quiet. I destroyed them both so completely, and yet, they were silent. No desperate apologies, no attempts to salvage their reputations. It was like they'd accepted their fate. I should have been satisfied. I wasn't. So, I dug a little deeper. I wanted to know what they were really up to. After all, Sarah was never the type to just fade into the background. And I knew Mark wouldn't sit back while his entire world turned to ash. It took some work, but I finally found what I was looking for, a lead on Sarah. She had been quietly trying to rebuild her life, using some hidden resources I hadn't found, yet. I tracked her to a small town a few states away. She wasn't living large or laying low with Mark. No, Sarah was pretending to start over, trying to build a new life from the shadows, thinking she could slip out from under the mess I'd created. But she underestimated me. Again. I made a few calls. See, the thing about someone who works in corporate finance like Sarah is that when they fall, they don't just hit rock bottom, they keep sinking, especially when a little extra weight is added. I had friends in the industry, and with a few carefully placed tips, I ensured that Sarah's attempts to start over would fail miserably. Her credit? Destroyed. Any financial ties she had? Severed. I didn't just ruin her reputation, I blacklisted her from ever finding stable work again. She was trapped, forever tied to the scandal I'd publicly exposed. And Mark? He wasn't even part of her life anymore. He had slithered off somewhere, probably hiding under a rock now that his schemes had come to light. But that wasn't enough for me. Sarah still had a small stash of cash hidden away in an offshore account. She thought it would be safe, untouched by the chaos. But I found it. And I drained it. Every last dollar. I moved it all into a new account, under a name she would never track. That was the final nail in her coffin. With no money, no career, and no allies, she was left with nothing. Now it was just me, standing over the ashes of the life she had tried to rebuild. I had taken everything from her, and the best part. She had no idea how. But the real victory? It wasn't just about leaving her broke and defeated. It was the fact that I was still standing, stronger than ever. I had survived their betrayal. I had crushed them both without ever having to lift a finger in anger. And now, as I stood at the top, I realized that the silence wasn't eerie anymore. It was peaceful. Sarah and Mark had tried to play me, thinking they could lie, cheat, and steal their way to happiness. But in the end, it was me who walked away unscathed. I had taken control of their lives, of the entire narrative, and left them in the ruins of their own making. There was no need for apologies or explanations. They were finished. And me? I was free, free from the lies, the betrayal, and the weight of revenge. I had won. I didn't need them to know. I didn't need their recognition. The best revenge wasn't just in their downfall, it was in the fact that they would never get back up again. And I would never look back. I thought I had finished with all of this, the revenge, the chaos, the fallout. Sarah and Mark were nothing more than ghosts now, their lives utterly destroyed. I'd moved on, or at least, I thought I had, until one morning, I got a letter in the mail. A formal one, sealed and crisp. Inside was a simple note from a law firm I didn't recognize. Mr. David, we would like to thank you for your role in exposing the fraudulent activities of Mark Jameson and Sarah Daniels. As a token of appreciation for your assistance in bringing these matters to light, we've transferred a settlement to your account. Please contact us for details. I blinked, confused. Settlement? For what? Curiosity got the better of me. I called the number listed, and a professional voice on the other end explained everything. Mark and Sarah had been involved in deeper fraud than I had even known, embezzlement, money laundering, and falsified contracts, all of which had caught the attention of federal investigators. And it turned out, my actions, leaking the emails, exposing their schemes, had done more than ruin their reputations. I had unknowingly blown the lid off a multi-million-dollar scam that had gone unnoticed for years. You provided us with key evidence that led to the unraveling of the case, the lawyer explained. The companies they defrauded have agreed to a substantial reward for your cooperation. I sat there, stunned. Reward? Yes, she continued, calmly. As per the agreements made, we've transferred the settlement sum to your account. It's substantial, Mr. David. How substantial? I asked, still trying to wrap my head around it. $3.5 million. I nearly dropped the phone. $3.5 million. My heart raced. The lawyer continued, outlining the details of how the money came about, but I wasn't hearing much of it. The words settlement and millions echoed in my mind. When I hung up, I sat there in disbelief. I opened my bank app, and sure enough, the transfer was already there. $3.5 million. Real money. Real life-changing money. It hit me all at once, I hadn't just won against Sarah and Mark. I had profited from their betrayal. All those months of revenge, the chaos I caused, it hadn't just torn them apart. It had brought me something I never expected, freedom. I leaned back, a slow smile creeping across my face. The irony wasn't lost on me. Sarah and Mark had tried to manipulate me, tried to ruin my life for their own selfish games, but in the end, their downfall had made me a rich man. They had gambled and lost. Big. It wasn't just revenge now. I hadn't just burned their lives to the ground, I had walked away from the ashes with millions in hand. And that's when I realized I had done more than just win. I had come out way ahead. They were left with nothing, ruined reputations, legal hells to deal with, and no future. But me? I was done with the past. I had a clean slate and millions in the bank to start my life fresh. Maybe there was justice after all. And maybe, just maybe, the universe really does reward those who take control. I closed the bank app, stood up, and for the first time in months, I felt completely at peace. The dust had settled. The chaos was over, and I had won. But the real fallout for Sarah and Mark was just beginning. After the financial scandals and fraud were fully exposed, it didn't take long for the authorities to get involved. Sarah and Mark were dragged into court, publicly humiliated, their dirty dealings laid out for everyone to see. Sarah, the mastermind of their little empire of lies, was running in and out of courtrooms, facing endless hearings. Charges of embezzlement, corporate fraud, and tax evasion piled up like bricks around her neck. She was fighting for her freedom now, but the truth was, there wasn't much left to fight for. The evidence was overwhelming, and the very people she once manipulated had turned their backs on her. Mark was right there beside her, trying to squirm his way out of the mess, but there was no escaping it. Their lives had become a living nightmare. Every day, I would read about their trials, their desperate attempts to avoid prison. Sarah had lost her entire career, her social status, and soon enough, she would lose her freedom. She had dug herself into a hole so deep, there was no way out. As for Mark, he looked like a broken man, shadow of self-confidence, smooth-talking guy he used to be. Now, he was just another pawn in Sarah's failed game. No one cared about his excuses. No one believed him. And it didn't matter how much they both pleaded or blamed each other, their futures were now out of their control. I had thought about attending the hearings, just to see them crumble in person, but there was no need. I had already won, and watching them self-destruct was satisfaction enough. As they faced the consequences of their own greed and deception, I was doing something far different. I was planning my future. With the $3.5 million I had been awarded for exposing their fraud, I was free, really free. My life, which had been tangled in their betrayal, was mine again. I was done with the past, done with the lies, done with Sarah and Mark. It was time to move forward. I sat in my new place, a beautiful beachfront home I had just purchased, thinking about where to go next. Europe, maybe. I had always wanted to explore Italy or spend some time sailing. The possibilities were endless now. With Sarah and Mark buried in their legal mess, I had nothing holding me back. No more revenge to plan, no more heartache to nurse. I was free to live the life I had always wanted. For the first time in what felt like years, I smiled. The real win wasn't just in destroying them. It was in reclaiming myself. Reclaiming my future. I had the money, the time, and the peace I deserved. Sarah and Mark were left to face prison, their lives ruined by their own greed. And me? I was already miles away, leaving their wreckage behind as I charted my course towards something new, something better. I had won. Completely. Bye-bye.